All right, so today we're diving into the world of Rick Rubin.
Rick Rubin, man, where do you even begin with this guy?
I know, right? It's kind of ridiculous when you actually start to list it all out, you know?
Yeah.
Slayer, Adele, Kanye West.
Red Hot Chili Peppers? I mean,
Right.
come on. This guy's worked with everyone.
It's insane, right? Like, his resume is basically a who's who of music legends.
It really is. And from, like, every genre you can think of.
Exactly. That's what gets me.
So, like, what's the deal with this guy? What makes Rick Rubin the go-to producer for, well, basically everyone?
It's a great question, and I think the answer might surprise some people.
All right, so we've got this musical prodigy, right? And it kind of starts early with him.
Oh.
Like, picture this. Lil Rick, 3 years old.
Okay.
He's not playing with toys or anything. He's totally captivated by music.
No way.
Yeah, like totally dancing his heart out to the Beatles.
Oh, that's cute.
Even as a little kid, he was just drawn to it, you know?
It's like he just understood it on a different level, even then. Totally. And get this, he wasn't content to just listen.
Oh, no.
No, he was the kid who, like, commandeered the radio dial.
Really?
Yeah, he was curating the soundtrack to his life even then.
Wow.
It's like he was already getting a feel for, controlling the soundscape.
That's wild. You can almost see it, right? This little kid, totally in his element, shaping the way he experiences music.
Totally. And I think that's such a crucial part of understanding Rubin's approach later on, you know? It's not just about the music itself, it's about creating an experience.
100%. And here's something else that's interesting. Rubin's musical upbringing wasn't all rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, his dad was super into Latin jazz.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so from a young age, he was exposed to these complex rhythms, unique instruments.
Huh. You know, I never really made that connection before, but you're right.
It's huge. It's
Yeah.
like it opened up his ears to all these different possibilities, you know?
Totally. The blending of genres, pushing boundaries, it's all there.
It's all there. And you can see how that early exposure influenced his later work.
So, okay, you've got this guy, incredible ear for music. You'd think he's got to be like a virtuoso musician himself, right?
Right, like a total prodigy.
But here's the thing.
Right.
He's the first to admit he's not some amazing instrumentalist.
No way. Right.
Yeah. Remember that interview where he was talking about his guitar skills as a kid? He was like, yeah, I just played punk rock power chords.
Oh, man, that's classic Rubin.
Total self-deprecation, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? He's not caught up in being this technical wizard, and I think that's what makes him so great.
It's so true. Because he's not focused on perfection, he's able to connect with the raw emotion of the music.
Exactly. It's all about the feeling, the energy, the rawness.
And that's so refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like he gives artists permission to break free from all those rules and expectations.
Totally, and just be themselves, imperfections and all.
Exactly. And I think that's why so many artists are drawn to him, because he creates this space where they can be vulnerable, where they can tap into that raw, authentic place where the best music comes from.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit now.
Okay.
It's the 1980s, and we're in New York City. It's gritty, it's full of energy, a total melting pot of music and culture.
Oh, I bet. What a time and place, right?
And right in the thick of it, you've got Rick Rubin soaking it all in,
Look.
going to punk shows at CBGB's one night, then hitting up the clubs like Danceteria.
Wow.
He was absorbing everything.
Like a sponge?
Totally. And he was really drawn to this new sound that was emerging.
Hip-hop.
Exactly. That raw energy, the beats, the lyrics, it just grabbed him.
He was hooked.
But he felt like something was missing from the records.
Oh, really? What was it?
He thought they sounded too polished, too R&B-fied, he called it. He wanted to capture that raw, gritty, live energy of being in the clubs with the DJ as the driving force.
He wanted to bottle that lightning in a bottle.
Exactly. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? His whole thing is about capturing the essence of the music.
Absolutely. It's not about being perfect. It's about capturing that raw energy, that feeling.
And that leads us to his first foray into hip-hop production.
All right, let's hear it.
So picture this. Rubin, he borrows a drum machine, teams up with Tila Rock and Jazzy J, and they cram into this super cheap studio.
No way, really. This is how it all began.
Oh yeah, and get this. They record the entire track in just 3 hours.
3 hours? Are you serious?
Dead serious.
Talk about making it work, right?
That is Rubin, man. And that sense of, like, scrappiness, that became a hallmark of his style.
It did. It totally did. And it all started right there in that little studio.
And that kind of scrappy DIY ethos, it became the foundation of Def Jam Records.
It's amazing, right? This label that basically shaped the sound of hip-hop. And it all started with a borrowed drum machine.
I know, right? It just goes to show you, you don't necessarily need fancy equipment or a ton of money to make a huge impact.
It's about the vision, the passion, the belief in what you're doing.
100%. And I think Rubin really had his finger on the pulse of something special with hip-hop, even back then.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
He saw the potential when a lot of people didn't, especially back then.
Well, that's what's so interesting, right? You've got this white guy totally immersed in this black art form.
And not just immersed, like he was a driving force in bringing it to the mainstream.
Exactly. Remember that story about LL Cool J showing up at Rubin's dorm room ready to lay down some rhymes?
Oh, yeah. What was it? He thought Rubin was black, right?
Yeah. Like, totally assumed.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, just goes to show you how deeply Rubin was connected to the hip-hop world, even back then.
It's incredible. Talk about breaking down barriers, right?
Yeah.
And I think that outsider perspective actually worked to his advantage.
100%. He wasn't bound by the same conventions or expectations.
Exactly.
Oh.
It allowed him to approach the music with fresh ears, to see the possibilities that others might have missed.
And speaking of seeing possibilities, we got to talk about Walk This Way.
Oh, man. Walk This Way. What a game changer.
Seriously, like, Aerosmith is on a downward spiral at this point, and Rubin has this totally wild idea.
To have them re-record their own song with Run DMC?
Yeah, it's crazy. Can you imagine being a fly on the wall when he pitched that?
I can only imagine the looks on their faces. And you know, it's even crazier when you think about how radio stations initially hated it.
Oh, I know. They had no idea what to do with this fusion of rock and rap.
But Rubin, he just had this instinct, this vision, and he knew it would work.
And boy, did it work. Walk This Way blew up, brought Aerosmith back from the brink.
And introduced their music to a whole new generation.
But it was bigger than that, wasn't it? I mean, Walk This Way was a cultural moment.
It totally was. It broke down those musical barriers, proved that great music transcends genre.
It's like, yeah, good music is good music. Who cares where it comes from, right?
Exactly. And I think that's something Rubin has always understood.
Okay, so from Aerosmith, we move on to, well, who else? The Beastie Boys.
Ah, the Beastie Boys. Talk about a force of nature, right?
Totally unique sound, totally infectious energy, and again, you've got Rubin at the helm.
And it's interesting because the Beastie Boys were all about that raw, unfiltered energy.
Which, again, played right into Rubin's strengths as a producer.
Totally. He wasn't afraid to embrace the chaos, the imperfections.
And they were kind of notorious for their, let's say, unconventional recording techniques.
Like using a bubble machine in the studio.
Yeah. I mean, who does that?
It's so Beastie Boys, though.
Yeah.
And it totally worked because it captured their spirit, their playfulness.
That's Rubin, man. He knows how to create an atmosphere where artists can just let loose and be themselves. But there's another side to Rubin, you know?
Oh, yeah.
He's not all about raw energy and rebellion.
What do you mean?
Like, he can also capture beauty, vulnerability, those quieter moments.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's what's so amazing about the guy.
He's got this incredible range, you know. He can go from Slayer to Johnny Cash without missing a beat.
It's true. And it's not just about the genre. It's about tapping into that emotional core.
Exactly. Think about his work with Tom Petty, for example.
Wildflowers, right?
Yes. Such a beautifully crafted album.
Full of those subtle layers, those textures.
It's like he's painting a sonic landscape, you know?
Totally. And he uses space so effectively. Silence, even.
It creates this really intimate, almost sacred atmosphere.
It really does. And it's those little details, you know?
Like using a car as a reference point for mixing the album.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Apparently he wanted to make sure it sounded good on car speakers, you know, because that's how a lot of people listen to music.
That's so Rubin. Thinking about every little detail, how the music's going to be experienced.
And then there's his work with Johnny Cash.
Oh, man. Talk about a match made in musical heaven, right?
Seriously. Rubin just had this way of drawing out Cash's raw honesty, that vulnerability that just resonated with so many people.
And hurt. I mean, what a perfect example of that.
A song originally by Nine Inch Nails, by the way.
No way. Really? I never would have guessed.
Yeah. But Cash's version, produced by Rubin, it just takes on a whole other meaning.
It's heartbreaking, raw, transcendent.
It's like he stripped away everything but the bare essentials, you know? Just Cash's voice and the emotion at the heart of the song.
Exactly. And it's so powerful because of that.
And that actually brings us to one of Rubin's most important philosophies, I think.
Okay, let's hear it.
The audience comes last.
Wait, what? How does that even work? Don't you make music for an audience?
I know, it sounds counterintuitive, right? But his point is, if you're too focused on pleasing everyone, you end up diluting the art.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's like you lose that raw, unfiltered energy that makes music so special.
Exactly. It's about trusting your gut, following your own vision, even if it's not what everyone expects.
And you know what? I think that's a message that applies to way more than just music.
Totally. It's about being true to yourself, taking risks, and not being afraid to break the mold.
It's about finding your own voice, your own sound, your own path.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Rick Rubin...
Man, what a journey.
I know, right? What's the one big takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think it's that idea of trusting your instincts, following your own path, even if it leads you off the beaten track.
Because that's often where the most interesting stuff happens, right? When you're willing to experiment, to take risks, to break the rules.
100%.
Yeah.
And who knows, you might just end up creating something truly special.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay.
So there you have it. The enigmatic, the brilliant, the one and only Rick Rubin.